Hi, I'm Carla with Race to Walk, and today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about a book that literally changed my life. And that book is Apologetics for the 21st Century by Louis Markos. But first, before we get started, a little bit about this channel. So here we share good thoughts about good words, and on Tuesdays I publish videos about books, and then on Fridays I host a live Bible study on Instagram at Race to Walk, and I upload that later to YouTube. So if that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to like and subscribe to make sure that you get updates of new videos. So a little bit about this book. Like I said, this is a book, Apologetics for the 21st Century by Louis Markos. And so this video is going to be a little bit different than some of my other book reviews. It's going to be a little bit of a story time and also a review of the book itself. So how I got, just kind of give a backstory. Several years ago when I first started going to my church, I joined a Bible study that was really focused on answering questions that people had. So we would go into, every 6 months they would hand around a sheet of paper and ask people, what do you want to know about? What do you want to learn about? And people would write down whatever questions they had. They had asked questions about world religions and about eschatology and about, creation and anything that somebody wanted to know about. They would take those requests and that they would make Bible study. They would have a Bible study series about it. So when I went into that class, when I first walked in, it was actually on end times and current events. And at the time I was super into that. And so when I walked into that class, there were people that were, not only was the topic interesting, but the people in the class were just so knowledgeable and they knew so much. And I went in and I was like, man, I really have to bring my A game to this class. And it was just, I love that Bible study. We had so many good discussions because it wasn't just about the teacher up there teaching, but people in the class would, share thoughts and insights. And it was just a lot of sharing and back and forth. And so after one class, a lady in the class came up to me and she said, I really like your comments. They're almost kind of like apologetic in a way. And I was like, oh, awesome, thanks. And so then I went home and I looked up the word and found out that apologetics means a defense of something, and specifically in Christian apologetics, it means a defense of the Christian faith. And so I thought, oh wow, that's really cool. So then a couple years goes by and I was just browsing through the bookstore at my church and I came across this book, Apologetics for the 21st Century. So here's this word, apologetics, and then I browsed in through this and it was talking about C.S. Lewis. Now, Lewis has been one of my favorite authors since I was a preteen, but I had most of his fiction, but not even all his fiction. I hadn't read The Great Divorce or Till We Have Faces because, The Great Divorce is like a bus ride from purgatory, and Till We Have Faces is a retelling of the myth of Psyche, and I just thought the first one sounded kind of weird and the second one depressing, so I never even read those books, and now those are two of my favorite out of all his books. I quote The Great Divorce all the time in things that I write. So anyway, so I got this book and I started reading it, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. This is really great. And so I Googled the writer's name, and so Louis Markos is a professor of literature at Houston Baptist University, and he just happened to be speaking at my church, at the main campus of my church, 2 days later. So I had never even been over to the main campus, and it was on the other side of town, which that in itself, Houston driving is an adventure. But I thought, what, I'm going to go listen to him speak. So I drove over there, and I didn't even pay attention to what the lecture was actually on. I just thought, I like this book, and I'm going to go listen to him. So it wasn't even on this book that I had just bought. It was actually on his book, Restoring Beauty, which is, it's also a really great book. But it was when I walked in there and picked up the handout, I found out that the lecture was actually for educators. So everybody in the class or coming to listen to the lecture was either a college professor or like a high school teacher. And it had been a long time since I had been in school. So I picked it up and I was thinking, Okay, this may be a little bit more than what I'm used to, but he is just such an amazing speaker. If you ever have a chance to go hear him speak, definitely do. He's just awesome. He usually speaks every year at the Houston at HBU's Apologetics Day, and also at the Writers Conference. He's just so good. So anyway, after I had read through this book and after I had went and listened to him speak, just after that, I started reading more of C.S. Lewis's other writings, like his theological writings, and it was kind of like an introduction to me back into C.S. Lewis. I kind of read Lewis in a whole new way, and so I was reading, expanding my reading in that way, and then every once in a while I would just go and check to see, if Dr. Marcos had published anything new, because he actually has a lot of books. And in one of those times when I was checking, I saw the notice that HBU had started a cultural apologetics program, and I read a little bit about it and the focus, and I thought, you know what, that sounds really cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. So then more time goes on, and I was, would check back every so often again, and at the time they had a site called Civitate that writers mainly from the School of Christian Thought would publish different pieces on. And so I, would read, what Dr. Marcos wrote on that, and then also other professors in the department, and I just really liked the thought, just as a whole. And so then, as time goes on, I see that they have another announcement that they are starting an online option for this apologetics program. And I thought, you know what, I would really love to do that someday. But I just, as far as like my life and how that would work, I just didn't ever see in the foreseeable future how that would ever even come about. So then it was New Year's Day 2015, and I came across an announcement that Lee Strobel was coming on staff at HBU, and I was thinking, oh my goodness. Now, I didn't know, before I went into the apologetics program, I seriously did not know hardly anybody. I think I had a book by Josh McDowell, but as far as like people in the apologetics circle, didn't have a clue. Didn't know who anybody was, but I knew who Lee Strobel was. And I thought, you know what, there's something going on there, and I want to be part of it. And then I thought, they're not going to come knocking on my door asking me to come into this program. So if this is something that I want to do, then I need to start making steps in that direction. So I filled out the FAFSA. I sent off for my transcripts. I applied. The one thing I had to do still was get a couple of letters of recommendation, which was actually ended up being the most challenging thing, just because we had someone sent one in for me twice and they never got it. And so finally I went and asked another client of mine, and she said, I would love to do that for you. And then she calls me and she's like, Carla, she's like, I do this all the time and I cannot get this to save. I can't get this to work. So anyway, finally get that all in. Then I get a phone call about 2 weeks, the end of July. And they said, well, we're missing one of your transcripts. And I said, well, I sent them for them the same day. And I emailed her a copy of the receipt of the transcript order for that school. And she said, well, if you could just have them email it to me, and then that will be fine. Well, my school wouldn't do that. So I had to have it mailed. And I was just going out of town like 2 days later. So I couldn't even manage to see whether or not they got it. I just thought, okay, God, if you want me to go, you're gonna have to work it out. If not, then that's fine. Because at the beginning of this, I said, if this is something you want me to do, then you're gonna have to open the doors. If not, just keep them shut. And I literally didn't worry about it. I mean, I had never been down to the university. I hadn't even made any plans on going. I just thought, okay, well, if I get accepted, great. If not, then I don't. So I had gone on the trip, came back, and 2 days after I got back, I checked my mail and I had an acceptance letter to the graduate program, and it was 2 weeks before it started. So I've noticed since then that sometimes people will get accepted to the program and they kind of will psych themselves out, and and drop out before they even start because they get nervous about it. I had no time to psych myself out because, I mean, it was literally like find out you get in and then just go. It was crazy. I went down to the orientation. I had got an email from one of the professors that said, what do you want to do? Are you doing cultural, philosophical? I didn't even know they had 2 tracks. And so it was just, I mean, I basically went into the classes that I could get into. And so it was just kind of like hitting the ground running, jumping in the deep end. But anyway, this book started all this. And this is actually, now that I go back and I've been through the program and I go back and I read through this is kind of like a synopsis of the Cultural Apologetics program at Houston Baptist University. He just talks about the different apologists from the 20th century, the areas of expertise. He talks a lot about C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton because they had a huge influence. But this is, if you're looking for a primer on apologetics and you were only picking one book, now I just did a video on my top 5 books for Christian apologetics, and that's apologetics in different categories. This is, if you're just looking as an overview, this would be a good place to start. So he gives a explanation of the different people, what they were, the different areas of expertise that they had. He talks about different arguments and different areas of study. And then he also has, which I think this is a really great resource in the back, he has a timeline of when different things were written. So his timeline begins in 1908 with Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton, and then goes down through up to, 2008. And then he has a glossary in the back, so if you have been watching videos or hearing people speak about apologetics and you don't know what some of those words are, he gives or who they're referencing. He gives a glossary in the back of terms, so you know what people are talking about. And he also has a who's who in the back with different who people were and what they're known for. So this, I honestly, I probably didn't read that part of it the first time I read it because, again, like I said, I didn't know who anybody was, so obviously I didn't read it all. And then he has an annotated bibliography in the back, which is really helpful. So let's just say you want to learn more about apologetics and you get this book and you kind of get a sense of the landscape, and then you decide, okay, well, what do I read next? You can go back to this annotated bibliography and find some suggestions for more resources. Part 1 is on the legacy of C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton. So during this time, as far as areas of scholarship, it really was to a point of, even people going in and studying in theology were really kind of more like skeptics. And G.K. Chesterton and Lewis really were very instrumental in turning that tide and making the study of belief in God and evidences for God as something that was respected and a credible area of study. The second one is part 2 is making the case for faith in a postmodern world, and he talks about the different arguments and different areas of study within apologetics. And the last couple of chapters, it really talks about some of the challenges about, talking about faith in a postmodern world where people really kind of reject truth as objective as a whole, and we've lost a lot of meaning of purpose and of us as individuals. And so this is a great book to start out in your study in apologetics, or even if you're just interested about who's who and what different things people have done. I think it's a great book. And again, literally, this book literally changed my life, because if I hadn't read this book, I doubt that I probably would have ever even gone into the apologetics program at HBU. It wasn't even until I came across this book that I really understood what it was. So that is my review of this book and my story. Now, if you've had if you have a favorite apologist or a book that's really changed your life, I would love to hear about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.